My name is Michelle Meadows. We live in Fairfax, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And my son Ty, he'll be 12 next week. Um, when he was 8 months old, he was diagnosed with systemic JXG, so systemic only juvenile xanthogranuloma. The only indication I had now, I only have one child. The only indication that I had that anything was wrong was he was 8 months old and he had stopped eating. I took him to the doctor, to his pediatrician, and she said that I was just a nervous first time mom. If he doesn't start eating in 2 weeks, to bring him back. And he still didn't start eating. So I didn't want to wait a full 2 weeks, brought him to see my aunt, who is also a pediatrician for the same HMO that we belong to. She said, the blood work that his pediatrician ran didn't look good to my aunt. The My son's pediatrician was so sure that nothing was wrong with him. She almost 2 weeks later never looked at the blood work that she drew. But my aunt pulled it and looked at it and said, "This doesn't look right. I bet he has pneumonia." So she checked. They did an X-ray, and he looked like he had pneumonia. So they started treating him with pneumonia, with IV antibiotics for pneumonia, and he didn't get better. So that's how it started. He stopped eating. He did have like mild fevers every once in a while, but they would go away without Tylenol. So I just thought, I didn't think it was anything. From the time that I thought something was wrong to the time he was diagnosed was about a month and a half. So when they were treating him with the IV antibiotics and he didn't get better, they kept doing x-rays, and his lungs actually started to look worse. So the way pneumonia looks in an x-ray is the air is black on an x-ray, but his was like foggy white, and that just got worse. His heart started to look enlarged in the x-rays. So finally, after another week of IV antibiotics, while he was admitted into Children's Hospital in DC, they checked his heart, and that's where they found a tumor. That's where they found a large tumor. And that's how we knew he had a mass of some sort. What kind at the time, they didn't know. They When they biopsied it, I think they couldn't quite tell where it was, and when they biopsied it, they accidentally punctured his trach and his lung. So they had to do a thoracotomy, which is they just open up the lung on my little baby. And after that, because I think of the trauma of that, he had to be intubated. So he was intubated for a week and a half before they finally determined what he had. When they when they biopsied the tissue looked like, we were told it was granulomatous in nature, but they didn't know what type of granuloma. They said it looked like juvenile xanthogranuloma, but that juvenile xanthogranuloma, JXG, only appears on the skin. And since he didn't have anything on the skin, they said it couldn't be that. So they kept him intubated. He couldn't breathe on his own. So intubation means you're hooked up to a breathing tube, because you're on a ventilator, because he couldn't breathe on his own. The tumor was getting big. And then I guess after the surgery, he was just really weak and couldn't breathe on his own. I when they said that they had found a tumor, that's when I knew. I was gutted. That's when I knew that it was never going to be the same. What that meant. This was all at Children's Hospital in DC. They found one of the oncologists who was working at Children's in DC had had never, I don't believe he ever treated systemic JXG, but he had treated LCH, Langerhans cell histiocytosis. So he used that treatment on my son Ty, and that worked. Within 3 days of starting chemotherapy, vinblastine, his tumor had shrunk enough for him to be extubated, and he was breathing on his own. Because the tumor was in front of his spine and behind his heart, the surgeon said that it was inoperable. He was not going to remove it. So the oncologist that treated him, Dr. Greenberg, said that typically they shrink the tumor with vinblastine for 6 weeks, 6 weeks of weekly chemo, and then remove it. But in his case, they didn't remove it. So he had weekly chemo for, they doubled it. So he had weekly chemo for 12 weeks. And at 12 weeks, it was gone. It was determined to be inactive. He continued chemo for a year, every 3 weeks for a year after that. When his diagnosis came in, um, that same day, we were told that they had to treat him with something because the tumor had gotten so big. And we were told that they were just going to have to take a shot in the dark at what to treat him with, and whatever they treated him with could make him worse. But thankfully, they found that his diagnosis had been faxed back then, faxed, and was found in the fax machine in the pathology office. He's treated now at Kaiser Permanente Pediatric Oncology Department with Kaiser. He will be 12 on the 23rd. And he's doing great. He's like a regular 12-year-old, almost as tall as me, and he's fantastic. He went through a phase where, so the first phase was he thought he was famous from all our involvement in Histio, because wherever he went with any Histio event, everyone knew who he was. And then he went through a phase where he didn't want to hear about it. He didn't want to hear about what we went through. He didn't want to hear about what he had. He knew that what he had was bad, and he knew that he had to go to the special doctor, so he didn't want to hear about it. But he says he's okay to hear about it again. So, and I've heard that this phase is common for children who've had it as a baby and don't remember. And they go through a phase where maybe it was cool, and then they don't want to hear about it because they realize what it meant and how scary that was. He has to see the oncologist annually. So at the time when they realized he had systemic JXG, Kaiser Permanente did not have a pediatric oncology department. So he finished chemo with children's, and then they transferred his care to, he was seeing Dr. Pradal, who a long time ago was Dr. Greenberg's partner in a pediatric oncology office in, I think, the 80s. So it's funny because Ty was switched from Dr. Greenberg to Dr. Pradal with Kaiser after he finished his chemo. When they look back at his imaging from when he had Histio, they could see that they could see the tumor in those X-rays. So if there's ever a question, if he seems to have trouble breathing, they'll do an X-ray to see. They stopped CT scans a while back, so he does not currently have any imaging. He did have his wellness checkup 2 weeks ago, and they just did the blood work. They listened to him. They check him, and everything's good. When I talk about Ty, I say that he had a rare blood disorder called histiocytosis. And I say that it is a disorder of histiocytes, which is a type of white blood cell. I say that there are different types of histiocytic disorders, and that his type, JXG, normally appears on the skin, but that his was systemic. He only had one tumor inside his body. And I say that I explained that that was systemic. That is how I explain it. When we found out that, you know, at the time they said that histiocytosis was not cancerous. And I would tell people, "Oh, he doesn't have cancer, but he's treated with chemo. It's treated like cancer." People say, "Oh, that's good. It's not, it's not cancer." I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to respond to people saying it's not can. Oh, good, it's not cancer. Nothing that we went through was good. I want people to know that histiocytosis is rare, um, so rare, and needs your support. It's an orphan disease, and because orphan diseases are not, it doesn't affect a large enough population. That federal funding research is not, it is not supported with federal funding for research. That um, is why we have that's why I am very involved and our family is very involved in raising awareness, telling Ty's story, and trying to raise money and awareness for what we went through. I thought that after Ty had systemic JXG and the doctors that were trying to treat him didn't know that JXG could grow internally, I didn't think any other child would die of systemic JXG. But every time I look it up, I read about another child or baby that has passed away from JXG. There was one I read that the child even had lesions on her body, and she was experiencing symptoms, a newborn baby, and they didn't check. They didn't think to check her organs, and but she had JXG in her liver and passed away from that. And I really thought that that wouldn't happen after, because my son was not the first and he's not the last, and I'm sure it's underdiagnosed. And that's why I share the story I'll share it until I'm blue in the face. When you become a parent, you go from being selfish to doing everything for your kid, and your whole life kind of revolves around your kid. And then when something like this happens, you realize self-care is important, but you do it all. You don't think. You can't think. You just have to do. You just have to do. You're just living day by day. Okay, today's chemo day, so you schedule it at the time that's convenient and you just go and do it. And then you try to throw some fun in. You learn to adapt by controlling what you can. And what you can control is your how you respond to the stress. You control what you can, because the histio, it happened. You can't control it, but you can control how you react. Your kid sees that. That's how I adapted. My family and friends came. That's another thing that just fell into place. My family was so supportive. Anything I needed, they would provide. There's a lot of people though who don't understand, and you have to be forgiving that they're not going to understand, and that they too might have their own struggles. And it's hard not to compare your struggles with others, especially if you're the type of person that's always there for other people. It's hard to not expect everyone to want to do the same for you. It affected my family in that they saw how fragile life could be. No one in our family had ever been through, no child in our family had ever been through anything like this. And it changed, it changed my marriage. It changed the dynamic of the three of us, just because it's just the three of us. Um, Kind of made us feel like if we could get through that, we could get through anything. I am not shy. I will ask the doctor everything, and I would send and with any symptom, I would send the same email to oncology that I would send to his primary care for everything. I would just copy and paste it for both throughout treatment from the beginning, even now, just in case the oncologist sees something that, you never know if the symptom could be an indication of something else. So if she'd want him to get an X-ray, then I would do that. Open communication, but also know, like, a lot of people are afraid to ask their doctors questions. They think that they're silly questions. Don't be. If you have a good empathetic doctor, they're going to want to have that communication with you, especially if your child or you have had a rare disease. You don't know if any symptom or any marker in a blood test could mean something. So you should always ask, and you should have that open, comfortable communication with your physicians. And I even remember, like, during COVID, Ty was high risk during COVID because his histiocytosis was on his lung, and COVID affects the lungs. We were late in his follow up because of COVID and because of just the schedule was tricky. And I emailed his oncologist and said, "I'm sorry, we're running late for his annual this year." And she said, "I don't worry about you." She said, "I know if you have any concern, you are going to email me right away. I know if I don't hear from you, he's fine." She said, "There's other parents that I worry, and I would be calling them if they were not here for their annual." She said, "But I don't worry about you." Write down your questions. Write down your questions so you think of them and you're ready to ask when you're at your appointments. I look at him. It's hard not to see hope in that face from 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 God. I believe that we made it. He made it through for a reason. We go to the Histio hike in Shenandoah every year, and I think this is our 11th year. And every year, when we first started going, the young adults were, Ty's age or younger. They're like young adults now. So to watch them grow and become successful adults and like these just brilliant students, that gives me a lot of hope. And I'm hoping, these newly diagnosed children that I meet, I know that they look at Ty and they see the same thing. They see the hope for the future for their own child. And to know that the Histio Association just is continuously working toward better treatment and connecting us and building the community for all of us affected. Spending time with my family. We have different likes, but if we have a fun day, my son just likes to play video games. But if we play video game together, if I can find it in me to play a video game and we've had a fun day or we watched a movie together, spending time together and being happy is what makes me happy. I love knitting and crocheting. That is my happiness alone, but my best days are when we on vacation or played in the pool or gone walking by the lake across the street. Those are my best days. I've learned that we are strong. We can get through stuff. Have to have faith. You can get through a lot more than you think. And you're a lot stronger than you think. I am a lot stronger than I ever thought. When we had the diagnosis, I looked up histiocytosis and looked for support and found the Histiocytosis Association, and I emailed, and Jeff Tohill called me. The connection is much better now than it was back then. At the time, it was just there was two fundraisers around us. Casey's Bull Roast, which is in Maryland, and that's always been around Ty's birthday. So like I don't think we made it like the first 2 years, but then we made it a priority. And then the Histio hike. We didn't go the first year because Ty was in the middle of treatment and I wasn't sure how that schedule was going to work. But I wish I had reached out to the Brown family who organizes that, because I think probably if I'd spoken to them, we would have gone. You realize it would have been nice to get connected to other Histio families sooner than later, because we weren't connected until he was already out of treatment for almost a year. The community that the Histio Association um, has provided me is huge. Anytime I'm down or worry, there's a Histio mom I can text and talk to. And I like to think that I'm that to other Histio parents as well. So without I couldn't imagine life without my Histio family. Reach out. The association, the staff at the association are just incredible. And they will connect you with someone that's been through what you've been through, because you guys know everyone's stories. Big network of ambassadors with all some patients, some young, some older, and some parents that have been through it, and parents. There's probably parents of adult children that have been through it. Definitely adult children that went through it as children. You just have a huge network, so reach out. Don't go through it alone if you don't want to. Some people do, and that's okay. But if you need us, we're here. So reach out. I get it's like what I said, that don't I didn't think anyone would die of systemic JXG after they found that it could happen. But it has happened. I even with the Histio Association, went to that pediatric dermatology conference and met a bunch of pediatric dermatologists who all knew what JXG was. But when I told them that my son had it systemic only one doctor had heard about it systemic. None of the other doctors I'd spoken to had ever heard that it could be systemic. So it was huge. I wish I knew a way to let every single doctor out there know that JXG can be systemic. So it's very important. Children shouldn't die of something that there's treatment for. I am an ambassador with the association. Whenever you give me opportunities, I take them, like this pediatric dermatology conference that I attended, and spread awareness there. We also have been attending the Histio hike, and with that, I post on social media. I hand out flyers and try to raise money and awareness at work and everyone I talk to. But then we also host a Star Wars themed 5K here in Fairfax every year, and we raise awareness that way. I am wearing the Histio TIE Fighter 5K, one of our shirts. It is a run walk. When I first planned it, I had intended for it to be a timed race. I do usually have I always have a volunteer that tells people their time when they finish. And we do have the 501st, who are dark side costume group nonprofit that attend every year. I mean, I guess it's Ty, right? All of them are my heroes. Everyone's story is so different depending on where they were in life for for their for their in their journey. It's incredible. And then to have or to see like a 13-year-old go through it, and to know what's going on, and have for their fear, just to see they're all heroes to me. So like the young children who went through it like Ty, and that have grown up to become, successful, brilliant young adults. They're my hope. They're also my hero. For anyone newly diagnosed with histiocytosis or any disease, is always to reach out. Your family and your friends love you and they want to help you. So tell them what you want. Think about it and be mindful and tell them what you want. For Histio, reach out to us. We're here. We're here. We want to be here for you. We want to support you in any way. Other Histio families know how to support in a way that uh, other people probably don't. Yeah, reach out, learn about the disease, and communicate with your doctors. Everyone needs to put themselves first. You're no good to your patient if you don't take care of yourself first, because that's very hard. As a caretaker, you've got to, yeah, just like on the airplane, you got to put your mask on first. Make sure you're filling your cup every day so that you can be there for your family and those who need you. Like, take a walk. If you're stressed out, go take a walk. Deep breaths of fresh air. It makes a big difference, even if it's just 10 minutes. Do it. That would be the one takeaway. Because I still struggle with that. Manifest the future you want to see. Picture it. For me, I picture dancing with Ty at his wedding. I picture him graduating high school and graduating college. I picture myself babysitting his children. That is my hope. And I believe by picturing it, I'm manifesting it, and that is what our future will hold. Manifest what you're hoping for. Be happy. Find your happiness. Find it within yourself. Because if you do, you'll exude it. It's the best for everybody if you're happy and you can exude it. If you're a caretaker, if you're the patient, if you can find your happiness, and there's no better cure, there's no better healing than when you're happy. And when you're the caretaker, if you're going in to give medicine, or if you're exuding happiness when you do that, then how can that be, that can only be good if you're going in to take care of somebody and you have a smile on your face. Oh, and that too, smile. Smiling automatically, even if you don't feel it, if you smile, it helps.